making, I guess, like a documentary trailer on the Odyssey, I guess. So basically, there's this guy, Odysseus, and the two chairmen or whatever, the two kings from Troy wanted to, like, they were getting big arguments and stuff like that, and Odysseus had the audacity to just out of nowhere go and fight them. So on April 16th, 1176 BC, Odysseus fought Troy and his whole army, and Odysseus's army was about, like, I don't know, 100 or so people versus, like, Troy's 1,000, 2,000. Alright, so they get to Troy and they lose about 25 of their men or so, and Odysseus just goes in there and slays Troy, and eventually he kills their best knight, the best fighter or whatever, and he's all like, his whole crew is praising them and stuff, like his whole army, right? And so what he does is pretty much Troy lost like 100 or so of their men, and Odysseus and his army took all of their boats, all of their old, like, Viking boats and ships and stuff like that, and they disassembled them and made this big horse to commemorate the Trojans for winning, you know. And Troy and all their chairmen and kings or whatever, they went out to see what was left, and there was just a big horse there. So they got the horse and they brought it up to the gate. So after all that, Odysseus and his men, his army, they all get inside of the horse after they make it, and they have ropes and stuff, and everyone of Troy is just sitting inside of their compound or whatever, their kingdom, and they're just partying all night, right? Alcohol everywhere, psychedelics, stuff like that. Everyone is passed out drunk and high, and everyone has, you know, little fire pits next to them, because they just, like, slept out there that night. They didn't go back to their houses or huts or anything. So after all of this, right, Odysseus and his men, they're all happy that they even got in there instead of, like, being completely demolished. So they're in there, and once the whole city of Troy, the whole kingdom, whatever, like, everyone inside of Troy was passed out, either drunk or high, or they were just, like, not even, like, they were just out of it and couldn't comprehend anything. Odysseus and his army, his men, they all, like, left the horse, right? They all left the horse, and, like, 10 seconds later, some guy of the Trojans from Troy yelled, and their whole army just started fighting. Everyone in Troy died. Like, most of their whole army died that day, and some of the people and stuff, and they spared the kids. That's about it. Alright, so after all this, where does this put us? Well, you know, Odysseus and his army, probably like 5 of them die, and then the rest of them just slayed Troy's, like, half or whole of their army, and they steal one of Troy's boats because they don't have anything left. They just have the wooden horse, right? So what they do is they go to the Lotus Eaters, right? They were trying to go home, but they thought their home was their home when it was really just the Lotus Eaters. The Lotus Eaters ate lotus leaves and seeds, which got them high. And they were all like having a good time and everything like that, and after that, they just left, right? After they left, they went to this other island, which had a bunch of ogres and orcs and big giant guys. And they got to the island, and they saw all the big giants and stuff stomping around, right? Alright, so at this point, Odysseus and his men, come here, you can do it, come here. Odysseus and his men, they're all super tired. They're all, pissed that they lost a couple of people from their army. They're all tired. They haven't slept in a while. They're all working super hard, right? So after they go to the Lotus Eaters, it's just a sign of relief when they can't feel anything and they're all happy. So they go to this island that has all the giants and ogres and stuff like that, and they all they went into this cave. They thought it was a normal cave where they could get some sleep. They didn't want to sleep in a boat on the side of the island because they were afraid they were going to get killed. So they went inside this cave, and they were there, and there's a bunch of food there. So they stuffed their faces full, like about to vomit all over the place, sick. Alright. And this ogre, this giant, he goes into the cave because that's his home, and he's pissed because there's no food left, no wine, and he went to go to bed. He woke up and saw Odysseus and his men. So at this point, Odysseus and his men are freaking scared, they're about to pee their pants scared, right? And the ogre looks at them and he tries to be nice, and then he realizes they ate his food, and that's why his food's gone. So he grabs two of them and starts to rip their heads off, and it's this big, brutal, gory, blood fest. Bunch of heads everywhere and blood and everything, and every day or couple of hours, he would eat some heads, and he'd just eat his army. At this point, there were 5 of the men left, and they're like, how can we outsmart this guy? Every day, they were in there for 5 days, and every day the ogre, the giant, would go out with his goats, and he'd, milk them and cheer them and stuff like that. He'd, go to work. Well, one day when he left, their whole army decided to be really nice. It's 5 people. They're really clever, and they all hugged the bottom of the goats or the sheep. So when they were walking out, they were on the bottom. The giant was smart, and he patted them down, but he didn't pat down the stomach, so he couldn't feel them. So they leave, and they safely leave, and they have a big fight or whatever, and the giant dies. But the giant is Poseidon's son. So Poseidon's really pissed, and he curses them. Poseidon is the water god. They were stupid enough to kill the water god's son. So that happens, and Poseidon makes it hell for them when they try to go home. They make it to this one island, where there's this king, but the king is a god. This god is the wind god, and gives him a bag of wind and says, use it if you absolutely have to, but don't open it ever unless you absolutely have to. So at this point, he listens, right? But he's super tired because he's the one that has to stay up the whole time, watching his crew to make sure they're going the right way, to when he's at war, whatever, right? So he gets the wind bag and he puts it in his satchel. He goes to sleep on the boat as they're heading home, and his crew opens the bag of wind. It sends them 400 miles off course. So they go past the wind god, and then when Odysseus wakes up, he realizes where they are, and he tries to go back to the wind god. He makes it to the wind god, and the wind god's like, no, I'm not giving you another bag of wind. I just did that, and that's, I can't trust you if you literally just used it, right? So Odysseus and his crew, there was only like 5 people left, they went to go home, and there was some other stuff that happened. I don't quite remember, but there was some other stuff that happened. The journey was 10 years. So from April 12th, 1176 BC to what BC goes down. So would that be like 1166, or would that be 1186 BC? Either way. So his wife just had a son before he left. And Odysseus told his wife, he was like, if I'm not set to return by the time that our son has a full beard, then you're better off just trying to find someone else and marry. And there were these old men that were trying to, get close to her and stuff, and she always had that gut feeling that he would come back. And he did. And another 15 years later. And he was the only one left, and he was all battered up and bruised and stuff like that.